Let's talk about the men's stories from this perspective, because a lot of men in these groups have had horrific things happen to them, were sexually abused, saw their mothers being battered, and certainly the mental health community would argue that they have, because of these experiences, various personality disorders. Is there validity to that? And if there is, should we be looking at different treatment approaches?
Well, there certainly is validity to the trauma that men have experienced, the additional problems that they bring to the programs, alcohol problems, some psychological depression, maybe even be part of it. But I think where the psychiatric community is still somewhat divided is what's the relationship of those things to the violence, and can we and do we need to single out the behavior in what is typically called cognitive behavioral approach, where you're really focused on the cognitive part, the rationalizations, the justifications, the thought process, the attitudes that reinforce this behavior and allow for this targeted behavior that we're trying to interrupt. And so I think what we can say is that still sort of this cognitive behavioral approach can be a necessary step to interrupting that behavior and stopping it, irregardless of these additional problems. And these additional problems, there's no doubt, can be, depending on their degree, a compounding thing, if they interfere with men trying to make change or trying to make it to a group session or even speaking up in a group session. And if so, that they get additional help for those problems and support. But that it's not a mutually exclusive thing. You've got to get in there and interrupt that dangerous behavior, regardless of how depressed they are. Just like in the alcohol field, it's pretty much accepted now. You've got to jump in there and interrupt the alcohol use, get a man sober, and then you work on the depression or any other compounding or confusing issues that may make it difficult for a man to sustain his sobriety.
The critics maybe would say that the Duluth approach isn't a cognitive behavioral treatment model, that you can't really have cognitive behavioral treatment unless you establish a therapeutic bond and rapport with the clients that you're working with.
Well, my experience in the field is, and I'm talking more broadly about the criminal justice intervention and treatment, is that the cognitive behavioral approach does not necessarily have to have a therapeutic relationship, and in fact that's one of the contributions and benefits of a cognitive behavioral approach. Especially in criminal justice settings, it takes a long time to build a therapeutic relationship, and we don't have necessarily the time or the circumstances to do that with many of the men coming in there. That what's important about the cognitive behavioral approach is sort of the techniques that it's exposing, helping men to recognize their thought patterns, as well as looking at their behavior processes and different ways to deal with their behavior or express their behavior and interrupt their behavior. Those things are much more educational and can be accomplished. I think you need a competency with a counselor, but not necessarily a therapeutic relationship that constitutes time of building rapport and building trust between you and the person you're working with.